Hey everybody. I want to talk to you guys real quick about an experience that I had yesterday. It was my usual Saturday. You guys know, those of you who know, I decided to do 7 grams of Yeti, and everything was going fine. Drank my tea, and I went live on TikTok for a little bit, and I was engaging with some of you guys over there. We were having a pretty good time. Um, the effects of the tea quickly kind of brought me to a place where my cognition was not as engaging, and I was struggling to read the screen, and ultimately I really had to pee. So I ended the live, and I got up, and I went upstairs so I could go to the bathroom. My legs were shaky, but that's normal because I've been sitting in a chair for, you know, without moving really for 45 minutes or so. Um, but one thing that I noticed is that my breathing was a little bit weird. And I can only describe it as I could breathe in and I could breathe out, but there was a disconnect between feeling the fullness of the breath, and it gave me a little bit of anxiety. Okay, I've had issues with this before, especially while I was under the you know having my experience, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna just calm down. We're gonna sit here quietly and just hang out with the family. And that's what I was doing. I was sitting in the kitchen, I was hanging out, and all I could think about was my breathing. I mentioned it a couple of times to my wife, to my oldest 2 kids, uh, just felt off. I felt like I couldn't breathe out as much as I could breathe in. And then sometimes it felt like I could breathe out way more than I could breathe in. Something wasn't right. So we hung out for another 90 minutes or so, and I went upstairs again, came back down, just trying to change my environment, trying to walk to different rooms so that I could, alter my focus, get out of my head a little bit. And when I came downstairs, the stairs you see behind me, I came down here and I walked that way, and I got just off screen over there, and I said to my wife, who was sitting in the kitchen at the table, I said, this breathing thing's got me a little worried. And she said, oh yeah? And I was like, yeah. And I turned around because one of my sons had just come from downstairs, and the whole room grew dark. And everything got real fuzzy, like tingly fuzzy. And I lost the feeling in my extremities. I couldn't feel my arms and legs. They just went tingly. My whole body turned into static, just all of a sudden. And I felt weak and I felt faint, and I sat down on the floor. And I asked my wife to call first responders because I thought that I was having an event. I didn't know. I've never had an event before. I didn't know what to expect, And those of you who know me, you guys have been with me for a long time. You know that this is what I do every week. 7 grams. I take every third week off. 7 grams. I like to experience the blending of my consciousness with the great energies of the universe. I like to reduce myself from this perception of Dave and really feel what it feels like to have no identity, I chase the ego death experience. I thoroughly enjoy a solid brain reset. Well, this wasn't that. This was absolutely, completely different. I don't know where this came from, but the darkening of the room, my vision went narrow, my hearing dropped away, and it sounded like everything was coming from really, really far off. It was a tight tunnel vision style way of hearing. The visual part of my experience completely stopped. Everything just went fuzzy. So no more whirls and swirls, no more wiggles and jiggles, no more doubling and tripling. It all came back. Everything was fine, except it was static. It was crazy. So I sat on the floor because if I passed out, I didn't want to fall down and hurt myself. So I sat down to bring myself closer to safe. And then I lay down because I thought I was going to pass out. And I thought that my family was going to have to do chest compressions and administer CPR. Thankfully, my wife and one of my kiddos are certified in CPR. We believe in science and medicine in this house, and we we know some of the things, you know. So we called emergency services, and it was I was on the phone with a 911 operator, and I was while this was happening, it didn't occur to me that I was fine because I was breathing perfectly fine as soon as I sat down, and as soon as I asked my wife to call paramedics, I started breathing okay. There was no longer a disconnect, but that tunnel vision was still there. The lightheadedness was still there. The disconnect between what I was feeling and what I had previously been feeling broadened. So I was focused on the idea that I was still having an event. So I'm on the phone with 911, and I'm also trying to tell my kids and my wife what to do to make emergency services job easier when they get here. I was talking fine, I was thinking fine, and the whole time I was breathing fine while I was shouting instructions to my family. But I didn't get it at the time, you know? So I'm sitting on the floor with my back to the door. They get here, right? Fire department gets here first. And in come, you know, fire department guys, you know, it's 20 degrees outside and these guys are wearing fucking t-shirts. They got their equipment and they're like, hey man, what's going on, you know? And I was like, well, I took a whole bunch of mushrooms and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna die, so can you fix me? And they took my vitals, they checked my blood sugar, and essentially, as soon as they arrived, I started to come to a point where I was okay. And they came in, they listened, they poked, they checked, and they basically said, if you want to go to the hospital, you can, but based on what we're looking at, you don't need to. So of course, at this point, I started getting giggly and laughing and having a good time. I was telling jokes. Clearly, I was out of that mindset. Whatever that was that I had been held by and held to, I had at this point kind of escaped that. So they came and went. We had some laughs, and I had a panic attack. That's what had happened. My mind focused on the one negative thing, right? And this can happen. This can happen when you research with psilocybin, when you do the medicine. This can happen. Your mind slows down. Normally, when you're thinking of stuff, you're like, oh man, you know, chest hurts. I wonder what that is. It could be indigestion. It could be this. It could be that. It could be this. It could be that. You run through a gamut of explanations and justifications for what you're experiencing because your mind is working so quickly, right? That's what we do. We're a media-consuming, media-involving species now, and information has become the thing that we live for and live up to. So with mushrooms, your brain slows down. Thoughts may come faster, but they don't leave quite as quickly. And when you are experienced, a lot of times you can take those thoughts and they flow in and they flow out, and you ride with them. You listen to this and you listen to that. I was hearing my wife talk and I was hearing my sons talk, and we were joking and we were doing stuff. We're hanging out with the dogs, and thoughts were coming and thoughts were going. But the whole time, I had this pervasive, infectious idea that my breathing was wrong. That somehow, for some reason, medically, I triggered in myself a fault in my breathing, my ability to breathe. And the mushrooms, they held on to that idea, firmly held on to it. And in a brilliant, destructive symphony, my brain manufactured a near loss of consciousness. Not a complete one, but a near one. And it manufactured the physical symptoms of losing sensation in my hands, my legs, my arms. That all was 100% psychosomatic. It was created in my mind, by my mind. And I couldn't let go of it. I could not let go of it. At one point, I was wholly and completely convinced that I was going to die. That's a stark and unusual thing. Listen, I want to tell you guys right now. I have lived. I'm not old, okay? I'm 42, but I've lived a lot of life in my 42 years. I've done a lot of stuff, and I have faced situations and circumstances that were completely not favorable to the success of my life from that point forward. And yet I've been fortunate. I've been lucky. This isn't the first time I thought to myself, maybe I won't make it out of this. But this is the first time that when that thought occurred, I didn't immediately think about myself. I immediately thought about my family, my wife, my kids. What are we going to do? What are they going to do? They can't afford to lose me, right? We don't have a plan. We're Americans. We don't even have any money. Who has a plan for when the lights go out forever, right? No, nobody has that, especially not at 42. I should have it, but I can't afford it, right? Because this is the United States, and health insurance is so foreign to most of us that, you know, it's hard enough to get health care, much less insurance. Life insurance, I mean. Anyway, it brought me home. It brought me to a place where I became humbled by my experience. I have never had a panic attack before. I am not a person who is prone to panic attacks. This is not something that I do. It's not something that I'm known for. It is not something that I am frequently subject to, right? I know up here, right? I've wandered these halls for years. We are deeply intimate. And I'm fine with it. I live in the moment. I do now, right? Because this is all we get. This is it. Tomorrow is a myth. It's a myth. It never gets here. Because every time we almost get there, it just becomes today. Right now, today. This is it. And that's how I live. That's why the ego death doesn't bother me, because I can dissolve my sense of self into existence, because I'm still existing, regardless of whether I title it Dave or not. This was something different, and I've never had a panic attack before, and I've never understood how grave they can be, how challenging they can be, how convincing they can be. I was assured that the lights were going to go out, and I was either A, going to wake up, or B. So, what I want to say to you guys, if you've made it this far, thanks for hanging out. I'll say that again at the end, but difficult experiences come. They do. They come, and we all have them. It doesn't matter how collected you are. It doesn't matter how well-versed you are. It doesn't matter how intimately you know these entheogens. It doesn't matter how well you've worked through your trauma, your anxiety, anything. Difficult experiences will come. Why? Because you have a complex mind. You are an organism of thought. You are an existence that is brilliant with imagination. And these substances, mushrooms, will take you to places that alight on all of those little parts and pieces. So difficult experiences will come. You can handle them when they do. Challenge yourself to know yourself better and accept a difficult experience when it does come. Learn from it, bond with it, grow from it, and trust that there's nothing to be afraid of if you're not afraid to face the challenges that you yourself can create. I don't know. This is, YouTube, obviously, right? For those of you who are watching, I love you guys. This is so cool. These are some of the longer format videos. I'm going to do a lot of story times. I do have some stories. This was just one that, happened real recently. So, yeah, enjoy your life. Live it, love it. Life is amazing. It's so cool to be alive. And yesterday I thought I was going to die, and then I knew I wasn't, and I feel relieved and excited and pleased. And yeah, I don't know. I think you saw my kid poke his head down here, so I better get off so he can come down and do whatever he's got to do. So I appreciate you guys listening to this. I'd love to hear your comments. And of course, if you're just stumbling into this, please like and subscribe. And yeah, there will be more to come. I promise. Thanks for hanging out.